Hello and welcome to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and this week we scrape the bottom of the Oscar barrel to look for the films that we somehow missed this year in an attempt to squeeze every last drop of inspiring juice out of the filmmaking orange that was 2018. But before we get into something new, it's time for something old as we check in on our last feature in Box Office Report. Now, last episode, we released the university-focused O Week about the titular week of the same name, which happens just before uni starts. Yep. It was a madcap comedy, teen comedy, I guess. Yeah. How did that go?
I'd like to say well.
Good.
But we did run into some legal trouble, as we often do. Now, to avoid getting sued by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, because there was a
Quidditch tournament, and we decided we couldn't call it Quidditch, and we should call it Wizard Ball.
Wizard Ball, yeah.
As it turns out, there's an even more litigious person who owns the rights to a sport called Wizard Ball.
Oh, you're kidding.
Who, when he discovered that we got Rupert Grint involved in our film, stepped in and said, the only way that we'll let you use Wizard Ball is instead of doing a coming-of-age story, you turn the film into a charming underdog sports story about the rise of Wizard Ball.
Right.
And we had so much film in the can by that point, it was just impossible to stop production.
Yep.
So there's this weird sort of like 40-minute section in the middle there where there's like a big Wizard Ball tournament. It's so out of place, it kind of like holds up the film.
Yep.
But we had to negotiate. It's got some interesting, reviews based on this very out of place thing, but we really had our backs to the wall.
Okay, and we still called it O Week?
We still called it O Week.
That's weird.
There will be a director's cut in probably about 15 years where that whole slow middle section is removed.
Yeah, it's probably one of those rare director's cut where we remove content as opposed to add stuff back in.
That's true.
We have to put it back on the cutting room floor because the edition that went out to cinemas had too much.
To be fair, though, it's normally the producers who are trying to get the directors to remove stuff.
That's true,
being producers, we're much more about taking stuff out.
Yeah. All right, great. So it's the producer's cut then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I can't wait to see O Week because I did remember sort of catching the premiere of that just offhand, and it just felt a little bit long.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an app apparently that tells you when in the movie is the best point to go to the bathroom.
Oh, really? Yep.
So if you go and see a film and just like, here's the 10 minutes that you can afford to miss.
Yep.
In that app, there's a 40-minute gap there. It's just like, actually, just go get lunch, have a massage, and then come back in later.
Yeah, it's all good. All right. On to this week in trailers. And as I mentioned, it's a bit of an Oscar special. The problem with this year's special is that every film in the Oscars this year, we've already talked about. And I think this is sort of a testament to how good we are as producers that we managed to identify which trailers were going to be
I think it is
Oscar
a matter
winners.
of public record that I said Green Book was going to win
exactly.
Oscars. It felt like
we didn't say it deserved it.
No.
We just said it was going to win.
And so all of your big budget Hollywood films, all of your dramas, all of your kids animation films, we've all covered those in the last 12 months. So what's left? What's left to cover?
There's a handful of interesting films that...
they can be classified into two categories.
Yeah.
There's documentaries and foreign films.
Exactly. Ordinarily, these are probably films that we wouldn't, discuss because we... maybe as brash executives might have brushed them aside and said that they are fodder for low-end indie art house cinemas. But now that they're Oscar nominated, and some have won Oscars as well, we're changing our tune slightly. So on to the first Oscar nominated or winning film for this week's episode, which is Free Solo, directed by... It's a winner.
Yeah.
Excellent. Directed by, and I apologize in advance for potentially screwing up this name, but Elizabeth Chai Vasahelyi and Jimmy Chin, and starring Alex Honnold and Sandy McCandless.
Does it feel different to be up there without a rope?
It's obviously like much higher consequence.
People who know a little bit about climbing, they're like, oh, he's totally safe. And then people who really know exactly what he's doing are freaked out.
I've thought about all cap like for years, and every year I'm like, that's really scary. I'll never be content unless I at least put in the effort. El Cap is the most impressive wall on Earth.
It's 3,200 feet of sheer granite. It's the center of the rock climbing universe.
Obviously, I get interview questions about it all the time. Oh, would you like to do that? And you're like, yes, for sure.
This trailer gives me the chills.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've talked about in the past that Gravity kind of freaked me out, the being alone in space.
Yep.
Free Solo is basically about a guy who wants to climb the highest rock face in the world without ropes.
Yep.
And one small mistake and he's dead. He's falling to his death.
Yep.
And I have a fear of heights. And this kind of just like, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about what this guy did.
So he climbed El Capitan in June 2017. And if anyone has a Mac here, probably has had the Mac OS release El Capitan at some point.
Oh, right.
And the desktop background is the rock face that he climbed. It looks...
3,200 feet of solid granite.
It looks small in that picture, but then when in this film, when they've done some insane cinematography in this thing to make it really feel like, oh, that's... Yeah, he's...
It's like a kilometre tall.
Yeah, and it's a sheer...
I can barely run a kilometre. I definitely couldn't climb a sheer face with sheer arm strength.
I think one of the more interesting things about this film... I mean, yeah, this guy clearly... He's been doing it for years. He knows what he's doing. And yes, there is that sort of tension of whether or not he'll be able to do it or not. For me, the freaky part was seeing in occasionally in these shots the camera person who's also tethered to the rock face to get these like insanely... intense shots of this guy as he climbs the mountain. I'm like, what?
Yeah, somewhat strangely, very Heart of Darkness, there is now a whole bunch of documentaries on how they shot the documentary. So this is how we shot Free Solo. This is the bits we did with drones. These are the bits where a camera guy had to climb up halfway up the rock face with him.
Exactly. And they get a rope, I guess. But it's still just like, how are you doing this? You are like perched on the side of a rock holding a huge camera. It's not just like a little, GoPro stuck on there. No, it's a proper like cinema-based camera. And they're just clinging to the side of the rock, chilling out there, filming this guy climbing up. I'd be freaked out being that camera person. Because imagine if the guy fell.
Yeah, well, they say that is the one thing that why the director never really wanted to do a film about free solo climbing is that there's always a chance that you can be filming and one of your good friends can just fall out of frame to his death.
Yeah.
And then there's another line in there as well, which is like anyone who has made free solo climbing a big part of their lives is now dead. I'm just like, this is dangerous, guys.
Yeah. Super intense. Think kind of like IMAX style cinemas and vistas rather, super intense.
I think there's now a video online of this guy Honnelly. What is his last name?
Alex Honnelly.
Honnold is he's now doing videos of him critiquing rock climbing scenes from other films, like specifically like Mission Impossible 2 and probably Cliffhanger.
Interesting.
Now he's he's the face of rock climbing. he's the expert that they all turn to.
Yeah, until he apparently dies like every other free solo climber.
Yeah.
All right. On to the next film. We actually have 4 for you today. So the second one is Never Look Away, directed by, again, I'm going to apologize for ruining these names here, but Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck, and starring Tom Schilling, Sebastian Koch, and Paula Beer.
Nie wegsehen, Kurt. Alles, was war, ist schön.
Arbeitet an eurem Handwerk, in den Dienst am Volk.
Hilft das dem Arbeiter?
Glaub mir, es stimmt alles nicht, was ich da gemalt habe.
Intense period drama.
Multi-generational,
Multi-generational love/politics film. Set in Germany.
Mostly set in Germany. I believe part of it is them escaping Germany. Set both during World War II and the aftermath of World War II.
Yeah.
People who grew up whose parents were Nazi doctors and Nazi politicians and are now sort of struggling artists trying to express their experiences throughout the war in their art while the experiences haunt them.
I think so. The sort of our main character here is an artist for the Nazi regime. So he's kind of creating the art works that you've seen, you've probably seen in various historical documentaries. The propaganda images of this sort of Aryan race,
the working class working towards the betterment of their nation.
Yeah, exactly. And then I believe he sort of comes to the realization that none of the art that he's painting is truly his own, and it's kind of his journey in sort of coming to terms with that and leaving the Nazi regime and all that kind of stuff. It's got Nazis in it. It's not going to be like your fun and games Indiana Jones style Nazis. These are real Nazis. It sort of looks at his life and his partner and what he does outside of working for the Nazis. Super intense. I
think it's a bit of a thing with these period piece films set in a time of social upheaval, that it has to be multi-generational. It has to be, here's my father and here's me as a kid and here's me as a teenager and here's me as a middle-aged person and an elderly person.
Everything has flow-on effects. There's another film that we sort of watched the trailer for before we recorded but decided not to talk about, which was Of Fathers and Sons, which deals with the father and son relationship in Syria. Which was just
how they propagate hate with like intergenerational hate. And then even Roma, which is probably the only other Oscar noteworthy film that we haven't really talked about, which again is this sort of time of social upheaval in Mexico in like the 60s, and I think it's really about Alfonso Cuarón's mother and him as a child and that multi-generational storyline. It's all about
still cause and effect and all that kind of stuff. So this film nominated for Best Foreign Language Film and Best Cinematography. Probably should have.
Was this the one that said it was like Poland's official selection, or was that a different one? I didn't realize that each country was only allowed to select one film to be nominated for the international one.
Yeah, just one. You get one shot, one chance.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, on to the next film for this week's episode, which is Mirai, directed by Mamoru Hosoda and starring Moka Kamishirashi, Haru Kuroki, and Gen Hoshino.
これから仲良くしてね。この夏、細田守監督最新作。甘えん坊の男の子、くんちゃん。大好きなお母さんとお父さんは赤ん坊の未来ちゃんで手一杯。未来ちゃん好きくない。そんなくんちゃんの前に現れたのはお兄ちゃん。未来からやってきた。
So we're going to something a little bit lighter in content. This is a Japanese animated film, sort of in the same vein as the Studio Ghibli films, but it's about so it's a little boy whose mum and dad have another kid, little girl, and this little boy is absolutely like, I don't like her. I am like, that sort of terrible twos kind of scenario where another child.
I used to get all of the attention and now I get significantly less.
Yeah. The twist here is that at some point he is visited by his younger sister from the future. So it's his younger sister who's grown up, traveled back in time to meet him. And they both go on a lovely, lovely adventure together.
Throughout time and space.
Yes.
It does say a fantastic vision of a young boy's imagination or something like that, which made me question whether seeing his older sister from the future is real or not. Yeah. But I think, I think that's part of the charm of these things, whether like you're questioning, because it is quite surreal, because it's imaginative, you're never quite sure what is part of the fantasy and what's part of the imagination.
Yeah, and I doubt that that's ever going to be answered in this film. There's a certain trend with Japanese animated films when they do this kind of weird concept stuff like this. They never explain it.
No.
Which I kind of like. I like that, we don't need to know. We don't need to see the girl enter a time machine and punch in the coordinates and like explain why she's there and all that. It's just wonderful to sort of see that journey without that sort of critical, we need to be explained everything kind of lens over the top of it that American films seem to love to do because exposition is a thing that they love.
This does one or two things as well, which I found quite lovely, which is it sort of explored a few different animation styles as well. There was a bit there where there's a guy with a weird surrealist face and a little guy on his shoulder who had a clock through his face, and it was drawn in a subtly different style to the rest of it. There's a few shots of like train stations where the background kind of seems like this sort of strange glossy oil painting.
Yeah.
It did remind me a little bit of the Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, the film that actually won the Academy Award.
I mean, when was the last time a non-Disney Pixar film won? It's been a while.
They had nothing this year.
I mean, it's still Marvel is still strictly speaking Disney property. True, yeah. It's still tangentially Disney. But they had Wreck-It Ralph and The Incredibles too. Two entries in there, and still beaten out by a non-Disney film. They must not be happy.
Too bad. So this film was nominated for Best Animated Feature. Looks great.
It does. It looks really nice. The trailer has this nice sort of Japanese pop boy band thing singing throughout the middle.
Of course it does.
In Japanese until the chorus, and they sing something like,
in English,
baby, whoa, or something like that. And I'm like, hey, that's an English word that I recognize, because the rest of it, I had no idea what you're singing about.
Indeed. Okay, on to the final film for this week's episode, which is RBG, directed by Betsy West and Julie Cohen, and starring Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
We welcome today Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
She's become such an icon.
Would you mind signing this copy?
I am 84 years old and everyone wants to take a picture with me.
Notorious RBG. Yeah.
When you come right down to it, the closest thing to a superhero I know.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed the way the world is for American women.
I became a lawyer when women were not wanted by the legal profession.
Thousands of state and federal laws discriminated on the basis of gender.
She's popular.
Yeah.
She is very popular. This is the second film that I know of about her, and this is actually a documentary unlike the...
On the Basis of Sex.
On the Basis of Sex.
With Rogue One, Felicity
Jones. Yeah.
Armie Hammer.
Yeah. One of the things actually you noticed in the RBG trailer is that there's a shot of her. Well, they sort of go through archival photos of Ruth when she was younger, and there's a photo of her there, and she looks exactly like Felicity Jones.
Yeah, so she must be about sort of 12 or 13 or something like that at the time. She was quite young, and she had that sort of very angelic face that Felicity Jones brings to the screen.
Yeah.
Apparently, she met Armie Hammer, who plays her husband.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, you're much taller than my husband was," because Armie Hammer's about 6'5".
Yeah.
And I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like 4 foot nothing.
She's not
tiny.
She's not.
And he's like, to be fair, Felicity Jones is also significantly taller than you are.
They scaled everyone else, so all the other extras in that film are like 7 feet tall to match. But this is, so like, I mean, look, we are Australians, so we don't know a heck of a lot about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but we do know that she is on the Supreme Court right now. She sort of represents one of the few non-conservative voices on the Supreme Court at the moment. Everyone is worried about her health as well, but she's been very much the voice for equality, particularly for women, throughout American political history. Before her sort of rise to fame and power, women really didn't have any rights.
She says at one point during this trailer that she acted a bit like she had to act like a school teacher.
Yeah,
because people didn't believe that women were getting discriminated against, and she's just like, here's like the 180 individual laws which discriminate on the basis of gender. Yeah. And notice how they use in this trailer on the basis of gender, because they're not trying to like sensationalize it like the other film.
They don't want to freely advertise the other film.
That's true.
We just spent like the first 5 minutes talking about this film, talking about another film,
a different film.
This looks good. I like. She's got a great personality. She's feisty and spirited and amazing. And I would love to go see this film.
This is very much a talking head style of documentary where they interview people who know her.
Yep.
There's some
and her impact and so on. Yeah. Nominated for Best Documentary Feature and Best Song.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah, Best Original Song. Lost out to Lady Gaga.
Star is Born.
Whatever
Bradley
the hell.
Cooper.
Yeah, having a nice little moment at the piano there. But go and see it if you want. And those are the 4 trailers for this week's episode. But of course, before we can do anything with those, we're going to have to take a little walk over to the green room. And here we are. So, We know that these films generated Oscar magic, that they were at least nominated. Some of them won.
Yep.
We love winning Oscar awards, as we've done so many times in the past with the films that we've made. Let's go for another one.
I think so. So we just have to distill the essence of each of these films. So we have a extreme sports documentary.
Yep.
We have a multi-generational
extreme political upheaval.
Yeah, story.
Drama.
Drama. I mean, it's all drama, right? That's where they get you. We have a quasi sci-fi Japanese animation.
Yep, family-friendly animated.
It's a bit Alice in Wonderland, his journey through the imagination.
Yeah,
so we'll have Mr. Megorium's Imagitorium, and we have a legal documentary. It really is.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a personality. So it's a single person. It's a documentary feature about a single person who has influenced politics in some way.
This is more legal. So it's not politics. I'll give you politics.
Yeah.
One of the things which is actually quite striking as well about this year's Oscar nominations is just how many of them are not coming from the big film studios.
Yeah.
How they're coming from Netflix. They're coming from Hulu,
Amazon.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg actually today has sort of called this out before, but he's sort of saying that films from Netflix and the like should not be considered for Oscar awards because they're not technically films. They're not made for a cinematic experience, unlike the films that he makes, and I guess the more traditional style films, and as a result, they should be judged differently.
Oh, interesting.
Contentious, very contentious. I kind of agree with certain points, and also I don't agree with certain points, so I don't know. But this is the trend now. These big, what were TV studios, are starting to sort of go out there and spend some serious coin on films that can equally stand with anything that was made theatrically.
So what are they going to? Are they going to introduce the streamies?
I think Spielberg's solution was just they can win an Emmy, but they can't win an Oscar.
Yeah, but I mean, then if they're going to do that, they'd have to have their own award ceremony, right?
Yeah, probably.
Just where no one shows up. It's just what's everyone doing? Everyone's just at home watching it. On behalf of the person to accept this award is no one. I mean, no one's even presenting the award. What's going on?
It's just one day the film is there, and then the next day the film is still there, but at the start of it, there's a little logo on the front of it to say that it won an award. Anyway, so us being a major Hollywood film studio, I feel like we can easily do something like this as well. So what are you thinking? What should we pull from this list?
We've got foreign language and we've got documentary, and they cover both of them. So we have to.
Can we do an animated foreign documentary?
Well, an animated documentary would be fantastic.
Yeah,
and I'm not quite sure how we pull that off.
I know how we do it. We do animated sequences through it.
Oh right, what was that? There was a fantastic animated. I think it was partially animated documentary about an Israeli soldier, which won an Academy Award a couple of years ago.
I was going to say Mary Poppins, but that's not correct at all.
I mean, this is blending in. I think we do that animated sequences. So any sequences of this documentary which are events of the past, we bring in
animated,
and that very sort of nice Japanese style animation,
properly 2D hand drawn cell-based animation.
Yeah, I think so. Do you reckon Studio Ghibli will come on board with us, or there's got to be bound to be a knockoff version of it?
There are. There's many studios. They all have the same name. It's always Studio something.
Right.
So there's that one. The one that made Mary and the Sunflower or something a while back, which is made up of ex-Studio Ghibli employees. Let's just use them to animate all these animated sequences for it. But, I mean, we really need a subject here.
Yeah, so it's got to be set in a foreign country. It has to be slightly political.
Yep.
It might be a figure of international politics. Are we doing that RGB? Or is there an international politician who participates in extreme sports?
Well, I mean, do we do a documentary? Do we do a mockumentary or
I was thinking we could do the wrestling career of Vladimir Putin. I think that ties together a lot. He's very hard to get a hold of. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's busy doing various things to various countries. I mean, politics at the moment is very. You know what's happening at the moment? There is a comedian in the Ukraine who is running for president of that country. Now, I know nothing else about this story aside from that, but I kind of like the... what if we did a documentary about the rise of a left-of-field candidate?
Well, There was, what was it, in the UK they had Lord Buckethead.
That's right, yeah.
They even in Mexico they have, or some of the South American countries that have rules where every political candidate has to legally allowed to have the same amount of airtime.
Correct, yes.
And you just have these absurd characters coming along.
That's what happens in England. So they have to announce the results, and every person that ran in that election has to be there, and they have to make reference to them. So there's no such thing as like a joke.
So why don't we legitimately create our own character and then insert them into these political races and do a part documentary style of them campaigning of their, and then part of it is like an animated sci-fi, because like if you do like Lord Buckethead, it is like we take what is happening in the real world and then we interweave that as like this political upheaval rebellion sci-fi story, which is sort of running in parallel with the documentary.
You know what's good about this? There's a state and a federal election coming up in Australia this year. So I feel like we are kind of ready to introduce a new candidate to both of those races. Someone who's running in the state election and the federal election for some reason. So I think that's where we bring in our character. And I like the idea of using Lord Buckethead as the kind of as the cookie cutter, the cookie mold there.
I want to say the armature, the skeleton that we build the character around.
So, and I think that like the idea of a character that wears a mask of some kind.
Absolutely. I quite like the idea that he would potentially be the evil overlord of either a sci-fi or a fantasy. Let's just go back to Studio Ghibli. Who are the antagonists in those films? Because I'm trying to.
There's a few, but they don't tend to present themselves as direct antagonists for the most part. There is...
Is it some sort of samurai style character? Because I mean, Vader's armor is quite strongly influenced by that sort of feudal Japanese style.
Why don't we go somewhere else then that hasn't been sort of used as a reference point for various other films? What's another period in history or another country perhaps that hasn't quite had the same... I want to say Eskimos.
Really? Because I thought if we're going with Australian, we could... we've already delved into the bushranger mythos.
Yep.
But, like, what would a futuristic Ned Kelly look like?
Oh, great. That's perfect. Yeah, so we'll do, like, the spiritual successor to Ned Kelly running on a platform of rob from the rich and give to the poor.
So, Ned Kelly is a bit of a Robin Hood. He's a real-life character, but he's an outlaw. He hated the English coppers because he was Irish and he went around robbing banks. He's got a very sort of, that sort
very
of...
Bucket-esque
I mean,
helmet.
really, if you went, what would Ned Kelly look like in a sci-fi scenario? It is very much Lord Buckethead.
It's just a bucket.
I think he's wearing some sort of big leather duster that has, like, maybe...
bandoliers, maybe.
Yeah,
as well.
like I think shiny silver reinforced elbows and knees that are slightly shredder style spiky.
So I also like the idea that he does have a bandolier, but it's just instead of bullets in each of the compartments, it's just like political talking points. Various
really,
like
he actually draws out his speech cards from his bandolier.
From his bandolier, and just like little bits like that. Because like he wants to run as a serious candidate.
I think so.
He's not. This is not a joke.
He has a political platform.
He has
that
absolutely
he wants to...
a political platform, and it's basically like the rich are getting too rich, the poor are
It
getting poorer.
is closing the economic gap between the classes.
So that's what do we call him? I mean, we can't call him Ned Kelly because there's probably
what is a sci-fi version of Ned?
I mean, I like the Lord part. I like something that sort of has a sense of the like over the top nature of their like reign or their position. So supreme. No, so this is getting a bit communist now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like a lot of the futuristic sci-fi stuff is very naval, like admiral.
Yeah, admiral.
I like admiral. Admiral works.
Rear admiral.
Come on, we're not. It's not a baudy 1970s entendre piece. It's gritty sci-fi.
All right. So an admiral. What's the long form of Ned? Ned is not. Ned
Edward.
is a nickname. Edward.
Yeah.
Okay. Admiral Edward. Kelly.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not?
Admiral Ed. No, I don't.
Edward is not the long form of Ned.
Yeah, it is.
Where does the N come from?
I mean, why is Bill short for William? Where does the B come from? Ask these weird old English people who are just making it up as they're going on.
All right, so Admiral Edward Kelly is running...
Is he just called like AEK?
AEK,
Except the A is like a 3, so it's A3K.
I was going to say AEK is A-OK.
Oh, there you go.
That's his political slogan.
I mean, it's pronounced AEK, but because it's all sci-fi and futuristic, the E's...
The E's could look
so
like
it's, A3K, and also 3K kind of feels like it's the year 3000.
Yeah. All right, so there's that kind of like time travel. What is the backstory for this guy?
He is a time traveler.
He's a time traveler.
Stealing it from Mirai.
Yeah, so this guy, in the animated sequences of this film...
No, in the real life as well. He adamantly claims throughout the entire election process that he has seen the future and he has come back in time to get elected to stop these problems from happening.
Oh, right, okay.
And this is done as a legitimate documentary where he's... Maybe we might not be able to start with like... national government. Maybe we will find like a local election and we'll get him elected there. And it's his journey. We'll shoot this campaign over the course of years as he moves through local politics to state politics to national politics and finally gets elected to the Supreme Court of Australia.
Is that a thing here? Do we have that here?
Yeah, we have the High Court.
Oh, there you go. Is it the same sort of setup as the US?
I don't... Like, the US is the only country in the world that appoints justices for life.
Right.
Everyone else does it a bit more sensibly, and so it stops them from being able to, like...
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I was gonna toss a potential spanner in the works here, the time travel element. And I know... So, backstory to this is that Isaac and I have numerous conversations about the legitimacy of time travel as presented in fiction. But what if Admiral Edward Kelly is coming back in time just so he gets elected because he's already been elected in the future that he came from?
I mean, this is I think... In the real world, as he's trying to get elected, he's just adamant about being back in time. It's only through these animated sequences that we learn of his backstory. We learn of his plight. He doesn't want to come back in time to be elected. Right. But because he has already been elected, he needs to come back in time. Otherwise, there'll be a time paradox.
Exactly.
And so he's fulfilling a role that he doesn't want to do, and this is the core, the fundamental underpinning of this animated sequence. It really grounds him as a character, and this is a front that he can't portray to the public, because if the public knows that he doesn't want to actually do this, they won't believe in his story, but he has to keep working hard to get elected.
What a bind. That sounds like it's rife for like dramatical intrigue.
Drama.
So much drama. Okay, do we need to introduce a couple more characters into this mix here? Usually there's advisors, there's people that run the campaigns, there's...
These are real life people, AJ. We can't just create them as characters.
No, well, I mean, like...
We'll find them as we go along.
Do we want to influence the type of characters that we put into these scenarios?
They always do. It's like, you pick a campaign manager. Are you going to pick the most sensible campaign manager? No, when we introduce it, we're going to pick like someone who's a little bit manic.
Yeah.
Maybe someone who's not quite as well organized as you would like.
Yep.
Because that creates tension, that creates drama.
Exactly.
This is the art of the documentary.
This is the reality TV of creating a political...
It's like, just regular people trying to survive on an island. It's like, no, you handpicked the freaks for us to watch. And you said, haha, look at the freaks, look at them laugh, look at them backstab one another.
You have 100% done personality testing and all sorts of like surveys and questionnaires to figure out exactly the type of person that they are. And you know that if you put them with this other person, there's going to be sparks.
Are going to fly.
Sparks are going to fly. So I think that's something we need to sort of influence in our sort of thing. So we'll do all the Myers-Briggs, all the disc training, all that kind of stuff. Figure out exactly who these type of people are. We do an open casting call.
Absolutely.
And do we sort of say... This is the thing though. So like usually we do a casting call because we're auditioning people for a film. Are we doing that here? Do we?
No, it's like we call it a casting call. I think the rest of the world calls it a job interview. So we advertise.
But we advertise for what? Do we advertise for a campaign manager?
Absolutely.
Or do we advertise for a campaign manager in a film?
No. They are the campaign manager for A3K's political campaign. Legitimately, this is their job role, their title, their salary is all paid for in that respect.
And so, do we tell them we're filming them?
Yeah, absolutely. We tell them we're filming a documentary about this. Like, it is a documentary.
Yeah.
It is not a mockumentary. This is legit.
But like...
A3K is legitimately trying to get elected to the Gumly Council, and he wants that seat on there because, this is how you affect real change in the past, which is our present and his future.
His platform nationally, let's say, like later on, he's like, take from the rich and give to the poor. That's fine. But in Gumly Gumly, does that campaign ring true? Surely, like, the residents of Gumly Gumly are all sort of at the same level.
No, there's a great big social gap in that, remote corner of Wagga Wagga, just where Gumly Gumly is.
Are we going to find, like, the area of Australia where it just sort of transitions very abruptly from, like, peasant-style hovels to like elegant Beverly Hills style.
You have the farmers on the outskirt of town.
Yep.
You have the townspeople who are making all the decisions for the farmers. But
there's a line. There's basically a line.
There's a literal line in the sand, and it's where the tractor's gone past, driving the furrow to plant the wheat.
Yeah, one side is the rural side. The other side is high end. Capitalist fat cats.
Exactly.
And in comes A3K, smack bang in the middle, ready to sort of shake things up. I would assume that the rich end of town has a much lower population as well.
Absolutely. I mean, they are the 1%ers or whatever. What are the term they used?
It's the 1%.
It is the 1%?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the same thing here. We find a town where it's legitimately 99% farmers and 1% wealthy
and it's
town homeowners.
It's a small Australian town as well, so you're literally talking about maybe 10 people on the 1%.
Well, you can't really do that because if there's 10 people, you need to have at least 100 people to have 1%.
Well, no, but
otherwise it's just like, oh yeah, I'm about a tenth as wealthy as a regular person.
No, because I assume that the rich people have been putting up their own political like candidates for years.
Yeah,
and they've also swung it so that their votes. So the votes of the rural people each are only like about a quarter of a vote.
Oh, right,
so you need like 4 people to equal 1 vote. It's kind of like what gerrymandering is in the US, except they've made it much more literal here in terms of a person-by-person basis.
Yeah.
So in comes A3K, and he's just like, no, this system's no good anymore. We can't have 10 people electing a single person in when, like, 9,000 other people said, no, we want the other guy.
Exactly.
So I don't know what A3K does in that scenario to sway that. Maybe he just, like, goes back to his Ned Kelly roots and starts to sort of quietly rubbing out those...
It's the guerrilla warfare that
goes down to the
political guerrilla warfare. I don't know. I don't even know how that would work.
It goes down to the 0.5%.
Exactly.
And he gets... I mean, we hope he gets swept to power. I assume.
The great thing about documentaries is that we just don't know how they're going to shake out.
We don't know.
Events are dictated by what happens in the real world, by real world people.
Yep.
Of course we want him to get elected. Of course we want him to progress.
But he might not.
But he might not. He might hit that roadblock. He might... struggle year after year to win over the votes of the common folk. He might turn. He might go, actually, I am from the future and I've decided that I need to rob from the poor and give to the rich. That's how it's all going to work now.
All reality TV shows have contingency plans as well. So they sort of, plan out the interactions that these people are going to have, and they sort of know how they'll play off each other, but they also have contingency plans just in case it doesn't go the way that they're expecting.
I had a friend who used to edit for Channel 7's reality shows, and the producer would ask the contestants a question, and they'd give their legitimate answer, and the producer would say, just for fun, why didn't you say these words? and editing it together, it's always just like they just cut together exactly what the producers told them to say about the other contestants.
That sounds like a movie film studios documentary to me. So
no one ever gets to see what's on the cutting room floors, and we make sure that our editors only work without tongues, so they can't spill these secrets to their housemates. But
literally without tongues? All right, that's...
Our editors are all mute, so they can never tell the world the atrocities that we commit.
There is
in the editing room.
There is no director's cut on this one. It's just producer's cut.
Yeah.
Nothing on the... We've purged the cutting room floor and burnt off all the negatives because for some reason we're still shooting on film.
Yeah.
All right, great. So we'll have all the fun takes of our Admiral Edward Kelly, which are the ones that we'll end up using. And then we'll also plan ahead and say, right, if he wins his the local election at Gumly Gumly, this is what will happen. If he loses, this is what will happen. If he goes through if he becomes an ex-Prime Minister of Australia, which could happen.
It could
happen this year.
This is what we're structuring for.
Can you imagine we'll be there, the scoop, with our film already in the can, just as soon as he's inaugurated?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just perfect. We can release it the very next day. Buzz will be through the roof. I mean, that's Oscar worthy, surely.
Exactly.
Oscar worthiness is all about cinema goer buzz, isn't it?
So the issue I think we have here is there's a big political thing that happened in Australia about 2 years ago where a whole bunch of politicians had to resign because it turned out they were foreign, had dual citizenship or nationals of another country.
Yep.
Because A3K is never going to take his helmet off and will refuse to produce a birth certificate because he hasn't been born yet. How do we get him elected to Parliament? Like, is this a Obama show us your birth certificate kind of thing where about 3/4 of his reign through being Prime Minister, he actually sort of like, I was like, and now I'm actually born.
Yep.
So now I can actually go and get it.
We'll do the thing that... I don't know. We'll do the thing that they seem to love doing in the US, which is DNA testing to figure out their heritage.
Yeah, I'm not sure he has DNA. I'm not sure any hypodermic syringe can penetrate his leather duster. I think it's future leather duster, but yeah, who knows?
So he's hermetically sealed inside his leather duster.
He might even be more machine than man now.
More machine than man.
How are we even supposed to know?
I don't know. How do we solve this problem? I mean, maybe he just becomes so popular. Like, if
I think people will just ignore it until
That's the thing. All these other politicians got elected and sort of did a few years in Parliament before someone said, "Hey, are you actually just a single citizen of Australia?" And then they're just
that's the thing. I mean, most of it came up when disgruntled people just went, "I'm going to research this and I'm going to find out." And hey, look, your grandma submitted an application for Italian citizenship when you were 4, so your career is now ruined. When people try and Google A3K, they're not going to come up with anything.
No.
There's going to be zero evidence against him because or her, who knows?
They'll probably get Y2K instead.
Exactly.
So that's right. I mean, that's the thing. This is the glory of a politician that has no history.
Exactly.
No scandals. No like prior weirdness.
What are you going to do? Trace down his Facebook and find the embarrassing photos of him when he was a kid? No, you can't. You can't dig up the scandal.
No.
He is the perfect politician. He's bulletproof.
Exactly.
Mainly also because he wears bulletproof armor, just like Ned Kelly, but also from political bullets.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Sensationalized, trumped up smear campaigns.
Not even bulletproof, like laser proof as well.
Yeah, I mean,
in the year 3000, they don't use bullets anymore. It's all laser based. Okay, that sounds fine. So we don't really need to cast in this one either. Just to go and find someone. The more unknown they are, the better.
And we can't even reveal their identity. I mean, it's kind of like, we probably don't even know who they are.
If we get them to turn up to the audition / job interview with a bucket on their head.
That's exactly right. I think we're going to have to say that we cannot know your identity.
Yeah. No one can.
This has to be such a closed loop of not even us, as much as we would never leak any information to the public for our own political or personal gain, we just can't know who this person is.
So if they turn up to the audition with any kind of bucket on their head, what we'll do is once they're signed in and once they're approved for this documentary and their political run, we'll give them the special effects the special effects bucket that we've created.
Yeah.
They go into their dressing room, put it on, that's it.
Yeah.
No one sees them. No one. It's like the Stig from Top Gear.
Exactly.
Right? Like no one knew who.
And as soon as the Stig gets annoyed and decides to write a biography and leak who they are, then they get fired and replaced by someone else who gets to earn millions of dollars by driving fast cars very quickly around a track.
Driving fast cars, running for political office. And
it's all the same thing.
Same thing. Great. What do we call this?
This is just called A3K. I think we take the Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That's
RBG.
The initial. Great. A3K.
A3K.
That's very catchy. It definitely isn't. It'll look great on a poster.
And you know what the greatest thing about this as well? We can nominate it for both Best Animated Original Film,
Best Documentary.
Do we just get everyone to speak French so we can do foreign language films as well?
If we do it in heavy Australian slang,
yeah, exactly. If it's so heavy that it has to be subtitled, you ever see the New York news will have from the far south, and they're just speaking with a heavy American accent, and they'll subtitle it because people can't understand people from their own country with an accent.
Yeah, for our international listeners, if I say I'm going to go have a tinny on the dunny, no one's going to know what that means.
Exactly, but do we subtitle it? I'm going to go have a tinny on the dunny, or I think I'll go drink a can of beer on the toilet.
No, we. See, now you spoiled it. I know. We
have
to translate it like any foreign film. When it goes to the Oscars, they have to translate it in English. Do you think any of those Academy members speak any language other than English?
Probably not.
No.
And a very narrow range of English as well.
Exactly.
All right.
So we subtitle it to English so
we can do
can understand
documentary, foreign language, and animated
film. Let's get best cinematography as well.
I mean, we're always gunning for those, like, even, costuming, because it's like, a permanent
bucket,
suit.
That bucket, like, that's going to be an iconic thing. You know how the posters for Star Wars and stuff, particularly the re-releases, just sort of use the iconic imagery of, like, Darth Vader's head in silhouette and whatnot. We'll be able to do the same with whatever bucket we design. We'll get ILM or something to design a futuristic bucket.
In 40 or 50 years' time, when there's a social revolution and people need to, wear masks to make themselves anonymous.
Yep.
They'll use A3K's helmet and they'll hack into databases and cause general upheaval.
Yep, and then the producers of the third Matrix reboot will then make a film based on the A3K, and then a group of internet denizens will take on the imagery from that and turn it into something even worse. So that's their entire future planned out.
Exactly. I mean, and of course A3K knows all of this because
he's from the year 3000. Yeah, great. All right.
I was going to say he is the Guy Ritchie of the future, but it's Guy Fawkes that I meant. Maybe he's both. Who knows?
It could be. Who knows? And I think that's a wrap on
you're right.
A3K. Housekeeping, as per usual, we are online at moviefilmstudios.net, where you can find all of our previous episodes, our bios, and the database of films that we've released on this podcast. Coming soon to that website, potentially, is a leaderboard as well for the Facebook game that we post every week. So you can find us on Facebook by searching for Movie Film Studios. Join the community there because we post emoji clues.
Emoji translate anagram clues, which are also coming to Instagram as well.
Yes,
so if you follow us on Instagram, you get to see those in large-scale format.
We are on Instagram. We are at Movie Film Studios on Instagram. So
congratulations to the people who got the correct answers this week. Never Look Away, of course, anagrammed into Layover Awoken. Free Solo was just the rock climbing guy, and I assume everyone got that one because a rock climbing movie won Oscar. Those very, very smart people who realized that the red, green, and blue, or RGB, was an anagram of the documentary RBG. Very, very well done for unscrambling that one. And somewhat strangely, normally we have to translate things into a foreign language, but Mirai is actually the Japanese word for the future.
Great.
So congratulations if you realised that the future was a translation of this Japanese name, which meant...
We occasionally get complaints that the games are way too hard to do, so if you feel that way and you can't get at least 2 this week, then
That's fine.
50%
is good for the leaderboard. Currently, there's no one sitting on that leaderboard, so you feel the first to get in.
Yet.
We'll probably also retweet or repost the funniest answers as well. So if you want to join in and suggest some weird, what other Layover Awaken might anagram into, which is possibly even stranger Nazi film about artists. Who knows?
You'll be forever immortalized in this podcast as well. So if you like hearing your first name in recorded form done by 2 people, then tune in and play. We are on, if you want to listen to this podcast and aren't currently doing so, have a look at us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean. TuneIn is now one that we are appearing on. Seems like to be a very swanky podcast provider. And pretty much any other place that you get podcasts from. If we're not on your favorite podcast platform of choice, tell us about it. We might do something about it.
Yeah. And also,
I don't know how you're listening to this right now if we're not, but...
Yeah, exactly. We haven't asked for it for a while, but if you are artistically inclined and would like to design posters for A3K or potentially any of the films that we've come up with, we're always after artist submissions. They'll go on our Mephisel database there of all the films that have come through, and hopefully we'll have little posters for all of those, 65 films now that we've done. There's plenty of them. I think we have artwork for 3. We've had 3 submissions, so
we have indeed. And I think that's it.
All that remains is to thank you again for listening this week. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.